Today's video is all about Paul Walker and his car collection, and I want to remember the legend, but also talk about some of his cars and show you guys what he actually had in his collection. You might remember a video a few years ago where someone had gone around and showed all these cars, and they weren't officially confirmed, but obviously now they are, and they all went on auction not too long ago and a few years back, and they all sold for quite a lot of money. So let's talk about the legend and remember Paul Walker, but also show you guys some of his cars and also some of my personal favorites through this video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get straight into it. You might remember this video where the smoking tyre went through a garage and showed a lot of exotic cool cars. Well, that was Paul Walker's garage, and I want to talk about some of my favourites, so let's jump straight into it without wasting time. I'll talk about the BMWs. The BMW E36, a lightweight from 1995. One of my favourite BMWs, and you would never see one because they only made 124 of these, roughly speaking. And Paul owned 5 of them, as you've just seen in the video before. Amazing cars and very, very rare. On to the next one, it was the M3 E30, which looked incredible. A very, very rare car now and worth quite a lot of money. And he had this in Bavarian white. A lot of his BMWs were in white, as you'll see. Looks amazing. On to the next one, he had an M1 Pro car, which I really, really enjoyed because an M1 Pro car, you just don't see any of them. And a real driver's car. BMW built it to compete in racing and went to Ferrari and other brands to get racing advice. So a really, really cool car, an amazing car to have in your collection, and I would expect Paul Walker no less, as he's the sort of the James Dean of our time, as many people have said. On to the next one is an 850 Ci, a CSI, I believe, something like that. These are quite rare, quite like them, and you can actually pick these up quite cheap in the UK, but I have to say, it's just a driver's car, really. It's a very exotic sort of car. They're probably getting on for over £10,000 now at least, but still an amazing car that, you know, with pop-ups, you'll never really see again, not in the same way. Moving on to Ford, and he had many different cars, like I said before, and it wasn't just exotics. He loved a good American car, and with the GT500 Eleanor, he really loved that too, and he included it in his collection. One of my favourites, to be added, to be precise, and obviously known from the film Eleanor, but also Gone in 60 Seconds. The GT500, or from 1971, was a customised Ford Mustang, which just looked amazing and very iconic for its looks. Onto the Fox bodies, he had Ford Mustang Fox bodies, almost like 4 of them, I believe, and he really liked his Fox bodies. And to be honest, I really like these cars. You don't really get them in Europe. Well, they never came to Europe, but still excellent cars, and he had 5-litre engines, so it's probably why they didn't come to Europe. But he really liked these. They must have been very customizable, and I'm sure Americans know this very well because there seems to be a lot of them. On to sort of Celine now, which is kind of related to the Ford Celines. He had an S7, a super rare car. Not a lot of people know about this one as well. Super special. And a Ford GT, the remake Ford GT from 2004. Which, of course, is really awesome. You wouldn't want to drive one every day, as Doug DeMuro found out, though. But fair play, Paul, he did like a good Ford in his collection. And just to add, he also had a Bronco. Do love these, but I won't include every car in the list. Moving on to Chevy, and again, another awesome car brand that he loved to own. And he actually had the Chevrolet Camaro. Now, he was proclaimed to have the car from the movie, which is called the Yenko Special Edition. But the Chevrolet Camaro nowadays retails pretty much £100,000, probably more, $100,000. I'm not too sure, but a lot of money. On top of his custom Nova, which sold for $60,000 at auction with a modded engine. Moving on to the Japanese, starting with Toyota. I did not miss this out. Of course, the white Supra in his collection. A really, really cool car and well known for being in Fast and Furious, but also having his orange one from the very original Fast and Furious, where there's many crazy things with that car. And a Toyota Supra, as we know right now, is really hot stuff in the JDM market. A lot of people love them. But Paul's sold for quite a bit of money, I believe, and it's very modified and spec of white, looking a bit similar to this car. Very, very popular. Of course, not forgetting his legendary Nissans, which he was well known for driving in both films and in real life. The R34 GTR, which was a car that he drove in the first film and Fast 4. And here is his real life car from an auction, which sold for $100,000. An amazing piece of kit. Paul had an absolute affinity for Nissans, as we know. He actually went to mines in Japan to drive some of them. And there was a video on that if you want to check it out as well. But really, really cool to see that you own the car that was in the film, of course. Really awesome. Moving on to the 370Z. Now, this is one I actually had a lot of interest in because it was in the film Fast and Furious 5. And it was a car that he absolutely loved it. He modified this one quite a lot, and 370Zs are quite cool. They're really unique. You don't see many of them again, and this is the car that it was. It's had a few changes and tweaks, but it sold for a whopping $100,000. Finally, the legendary S15 Sylvia, a car that was really cool and rare for the JDM scene, well known in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. He had a bit of a body kit on his, as seen here. This is also Paul's exact car on track with him racing it. Paul's love was also for supercars as well, but not a huge amount of them. But he did have a couple of Ferraris, according to the sources, as well as being a Ferrari F355. A really cool Ferrari, because this is not only got pop-ups, of course, but this car is a very slick driving car. It was really made for driving, and they just don't make them the same way. Very mechanical, and a very cool car to drive. And I imagine Paul Walker really enjoyed driving one of these as well. And also pretty rare now. You really don't see a lot of F355s. Really common for being replicas as well. Moving on to the 360, but not just any 360. He owned a pretty special 360, but I want to talk about the 360 because it is a really cool car. It was the Challenge Stradale, a very race setup and track tuned car. And you can see it here in this picture where he is shown with the car in the garage. Finishing off with Porsche and a few more super and exotic cars. I really like some of the Porsches he had, which is a GT3 RS, which again, a really track-tuned car. Would not expect no less from Paul Walker here, because he loves track-tuned cars, very specific for racing and taking on, of course, to the track, or maybe a car show. The GT3 was an excellent car for that, which was a really track-focused car at the time, and not much was in its competition. And finally, the Porsche 930 Turbo, which is a really rare 911 Turbo from the 1970s. Really cool car. And finally, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll leave you with a few words from the man himself.
It's a different car for almost every day, I think. It depends on what mood you're in.